If you just, listen to the background noise of our culture today, business, social media, even just relationships, there's one message that comes through loud and clear. Strength means independence. It means you're self-sufficient, you have total emotional control, and you never ever show that you're vulnerable.
Right. Weakness is seen as a failure, something to be hidden.
Exactly. But what if that whole idea is just fundamentally wrong? What if the most revolutionary truth out there is that real spiritual power is found precisely when we admit we're weak?
That it's not a failure at all.
Not at all. It's the entry point. So today we're going to talk about this incredible paradox, strength through weakness, and how the comfort and, frankly, the pride of our modern world, it acts like a spiritual anesthetic.
It just numbs us.
It numbs us completely. We're looking for the way back, the way to strip away that facade and get back to a place of vital, necessary dependence.
And the foundational claim here is, well, there's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
That God's power is actually made perfect in human weakness.
It's not just a nice saying.
No, not at all. This is the absolute heart of the Christian paradox. It's strength through weakness, life through death, glory through suffering.
And we see this theme playing out right from the start of the New Testament church. Where does Paul really hit this idea the hardest?
Of all places, Corinth. You really have to picture the setting. Paul goes to this city, and, historians describe it as just depraved, pagan, completely status-obsessed.
The opposite of a receptive audience, you'd think.
You would think. It was all about worldly wisdom, wealth, power. They had this Roman concept of virtus, which is all about manly strength, social dominance. That was the ideal. And yet, when the church starts there, who's in it? The material says it was filled with poor slaves and much debauchery.
So the people on the bottom rung.
Exactly. The low, the broken, the people who were socially disqualified. They knew they needed something more because they couldn't rely on their own status or their intellect. They were ready for hope.
That context is so important. So you have a city that's just obsessed with boasting about money, about intellect, and Paul writes a letter that's centered on being weak and foolish.
Precisely. And for Paul, this wasn't some academic theory. He learned this lesson through immense suffering. He talks about physical pain, spiritual battles, and it's right in that context that he writes his famous declaration. My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness.
And then he says he'll boast about his weaknesses.
Yes. All the more gladly, he says, so that the power of Christ can rest on him.
That is just a staggering, radical inversion of values. We do everything we can to hide our weaknesses to look strong.
And Paul says, I'll proudly display them so Christ's power can be seen. It's the mechanism. It's how God makes sure that he gets the glory.
So there's no confusion about where the power is coming from.
None. Paul says it explicitly. God chooses what is foolish in the world to shame the wise. God chose what is weak in the world to shame the strong. Why? Because when God works through a fragile, broken person, there's no ambiguity.
There's no competition from human achievement.
Zero competition. God's most profound work always begins right at that point of genuine dependence.
That's a powerful diagnosis. And if dependence is the entry point for God's power, then the modern Western world, especially the U.S., has sort of unintentionally built the perfect fortress to keep him out.
An illusion of strength.
Yeah, an illusion built on comfort, on wealth, on technology, and this relentless cultural message that we have to be fiercely individualistic, utterly self-sufficient.
Now, what's so insidious about that is how we've twisted the definition of courage. Courage isn't being brave in your weakness anymore. It's about being emotionally bulletproof.
Right, never admitting you were wrong.
Never.
And this gets really sharp when you look at the cultural script for men. Think about the phrases we all grew up with. Man up, don't cry.
Duck it out.
Never show weakness. On the surface, it sounds noble, but when that gets spiritualized, it becomes this damaging facade of strength that just guarantees you'll be isolated.
Mm-hmm. It's a performance. We think we have to have it all together to be accepted, not just by society, but sometimes we think by God.
But the perfect man, Jesus, he just shatters that stoic ideal, doesn't he?
He completely shatters it. You look at the Gospels, and his vulnerability is on full display. He wept openly. It says so in John's Gospel. He wasn't just sad, he expressed it.
And Gethsemane.
He showed deep anguish, crying out in need. And then, ultimately, on the cross, he cried out for help.
So, was he weak? Of course not. But he was perfectly vulnerable, and in that vulnerability we see the depth of his love, the perfection of his power.
That contrast is the key.
Yeah.
This isn't about competency. Of course you should work hard, but it's about reliance. When we hide our weakness, when we put on a show, we stop seeing God as a father and start seeing him as, well, as an employer we have to impress.
Okay, let's get practical then. If you, listening, insist on keeping up this facade of strength, what are the real damaging consequences?
Well, there are three main ways we end up hurting ourselves and the community around us. First, we actually rob others of encouragement.
How so?
When we pretend our faith journey is perfect and spotless, we send the message that God only works through people who have it all figured out. And that's just a lie.
Yeah, a discouraging lie. Okay, what's the second one?
Second, we shut ourselves off from the help of the body of Christ. We literally prevent people from being able to bear one another's burdens. We starve the community of the chance to actually practice real love.
And the third consequence is the most spiritual one, isn't it?
It is. We literally block the flow of God's grace. Grace, by its very nature, is undeserved help given to the needy. If we keep insisting we're not needy,
we close the door.
We close the door to that power of Christ that Paul was so desperate to have rest upon him.
Okay, so this brings us to a really crucial question. If this is the problem, where does Jesus himself teach us how to enter this kingdom of dependence?
He addresses this cultural lie of strength immediately, right at the beginning of the Sermon on the Mount. He lays out the absolute requirement for kingdom living.
And it must have been so shocking. You know, we read those opening lines and they're familiar, but that audience was expecting a call to arms, to military strength, or social power.
Absolutely. The Beatitudes are the complete antithesis of that striving culture. The very first line defines the entrance, and it's this radical statement of spiritual bankruptcy. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven.
What does that actually mean for us today, being poor in spirit?
It has nothing to do with how much money is in your bank account. It means recognizing your spiritual poverty. It's the admission, plain and simple, that says, I can't save myself. I am completely bankrupt. I have nothing to offer God but my desperate need.
So that posture is the only ticket in.
The only ticket. Not your intellect, not your social standing, not your achievements, just need. And Jesus just keeps going, turning the world's value system completely upside down.
Right. The blessing is on those who mourn.
Yes, those who admit their pain instead of pretending they're fine. It's on the meek, the humble, not the dominant and the proud. It's on those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, which means it's on those who lack something, who yearn for more than what this world or their own status can offer.
So the whole sermon is telling us to stop asking, how can I look strong?
And start asking, how can I be completely honest and humble so that Christ's strength can finally be seen in me?
That makes perfect sense theologically. The problem for us, though, living now, is just execution. If the kingdom starts with feeling our spiritual poverty, why is it so hard for us to feel that need?
Because we're comfortable.
We're so comfortable, our problems feel manageable. We've basically anesthetized ourselves to any real spiritual hunger.
Comfort is a dangerous state.
Yeah.
Our daily struggles are real, sure, but they don't usually force us to the cross. They force us to Amazon or to the next self-help guru. It's a slow, chronic drift into numbness.
And that comfort creates a kind of spiritual immunity.
That's a great way to put it. We stop seeing subtle sin as destructive sin.
And that's where the unseen sickness can really thrive. Let's talk about those subtle sins, because they're like the termites eating away at the foundation while we're admiring the paint job. The first one is that big theme, self-sufficiency.
This is that quiet lie that just whispers, I can handle this on my own. And it shows up immediately in our prayer life, or lack of a prayer life.
If you don't feel the need to pray for yourself, you definitely don't feel the need to ask anyone else to pray for you.
And right there, you're disobeying the command to bear one another's burdens. You're isolating yourself, and you're mistaking self-reliance for faith.
That connects directly to the next subtle sin, which is this crucial difference between ownership versus stewardship. We live like we own our time, our money, our bodies, planning our lives based on what we think we deserve.
And we forget the fundamental reality that we were bought with a price. If you're a steward, everything you have belongs to the Father, and you have to ask him how to use it.
But if you're an owner,
your main concern is your own efficiency and personal satisfaction. That tiny shift in perspective, owner versus steward, it changes every single decision you make.
It's a heart problem that's disguised as a time management problem. Okay, another deep, unseen issue. The sin of hatred and dislike of others. That sounds extreme.
But we're not talking about outright violence. We're talking about that coldness, that feeling of superiority, or just holding on to bitterness.
And Jesus connected this directly, right, in that same sermon.
He did. He said, everyone who is angry with his brother will be liable to judgment. So harboring that slow burn coldness, that subtle judgmental spirit, that's the seed of hatred. It grows silently. And because our culture normalizes it, we don't even see how lethal it is.
And finally, what about the normal indulgences? We're constantly entertained by things Christ died to save us from. The endless scroll, passively consuming media that just normalizes what God calls evil.
And this isn't just about wasting time. It creates a deeper spiritual immunity. The material warns we're in danger of calling evil good and good evil, just because we've dulled our senses.
So we're becoming spiritually immune.
Exactly, leading to the precise delusion Jesus warned about in Revelation. You say, I am rich, I have prospered, and I need nothing. But you don't realize you're actually wretched, pitiable, poor, blind, and naked. We're asleep while claiming to be wide awake.
And every single one of those issues, self-sufficiency, ownership, hatred, indulgence, it all comes from one place.
Every single one. It is all rooted in one source, pride. It is the mother sin, the oldest, deadliest rebellion there is.
It's the exaltation of self.
And the absolute refusal to be dependent on anyone or anything else. It's that whisper that says, I want to be God.
That's a powerful assessment. And since pride is the source, we have to recognize it's in all of us, even when we're trying to be spiritual. How does this devastating reality show up in our lives today?
Well, it mainly shows up in three core phases that we really need to diagnose. First, we go right back to self-sufficiency. This is the theological lie that whispers, you've got this, you're competent, you don't need to pray today, you definitely don't need to confess that minor sin.
We confuse our own self-control with genuine independence from God.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And we forget Jesus' crystal clear teaching. Apart from me, you can do nothing. Self-sufficiency is a lie because it denies our need for God's active, moment-by-moment mercy.
Okay, what's the second phase of pride?
The second phase is deserving recognition. This is that craving for credit, for thanks, for the spotlight. It's what drives so much of our social media performance. We want to be known for what we've done or how good we look.
This is the sin of the perfect resume, the perfect Instagram feed.
It absolutely is. We want to curate a life that demands praise, and it runs completely contrary to Jesus' instruction to do your righteous deeds in secret. The truth is, we have to face Paul's challenge. What do you have that you did not receive?
Meaning everything is a gift.
Everything. Your talent, your health, your very next breath. It's all a gift. There is zero room for boasting, but we are constantly trying to carve out a little space for it.
And the third phase?
The third phase is superiority. This is that intellectual or spiritual arrogance, thinking our ideas are more important, loving the sound of our own voice, and just shutting down or refusing any correction from others.
The superiority complex is just devastating for community. It makes us totally unteachable.
It does. And Scripture commands us to, in humility, count others more significant than yourselves.
Yeah.
The devastation of pride is absolute because God personally actively resists the proud. God opposes the proud but gives grace to the humble. It's a direct conflict.
So what's the cure?
The only antidote to pride is the cross of Christ. At the cross, all our boasting dies, because there we see the one truly great one make himself nothing, humbling himself all the way to death. The only way forward is death to self. It's the necessary first step for new life in Christ.
That brings this whole discussion full circle. So if this is the truth, that strength is found in weakness, that pride is the great obstacle, what does this mean for how we actually live tomorrow? How do we take this idea and make it real?
It means we have to go back to a genuine, simple, childlike faith. You know, Jesus didn't say, come to me like expert theologians or come like seasoned warriors.
He said, come like children.
Exactly. And what do children do? They ask for help. They admit their need freely. They trust their father implicitly. That's dependent faith, not a performative faith.
So the way forward is through confession and community. We have to confess those subtle sins we talked about, the pride, the indifference, the spiritual laziness, and then intentionally get into a humble community.
Right. Where we actually invite others to speak truth into our blind spots. Where we truly bear one another's burdens.
It requires a lifestyle of vulnerability.
Yes. We have to choose honesty over performance. When we admit our weaknesses, we give God the space He needs to show up, and we give other people permission to do the same thing.
This whole discussion confirms we have to figure this out, not just in our heads, but as a way of life. If we truly start showing our brokenness, inviting Christ's strength into that weakness, the material promises we will see resurrection power released in a way we haven't before. The cross isn't just where Jesus died for us, it's the place where we have to die to self so we can be raised in a new kind of dependent life. The ultimate takeaway, I think, is that we need men and women who get it, who understand that their real strength isn't in their standing or their self-sufficiency,
but in the power that rests upon them precisely when they kneel.
That's the power that changes the world.